You're listening to Hustle and Heart, Defining Success on Your Own Terms, a podcast for the dreamers and go-getters who are building something real and refuse to leave the most important parts of themselves behind while they do it. I'm Vanessa, a brand strategist, founder, and your host. I sit down with women doing the kind of work that doesn't always make it onto the highlight reel, but absolutely should. This is where we have that conversation. Let's get into it. My guest today is someone whose work I have a lot of respect for, and I think after this conversation, you will too. Rochelle Levy is a culture strategist, facilitator, and creative director. She's the founder and CEO of Alchemy for Change, a benefit corporation where the consulting work she does for leaders and institutions directly funds free and subsidized programming for the community. That model alone tells you everything you need to know about how she moves. She also leads Black Girl Assembly, a leadership and wellness ecosystem built specifically for Black girls and women. Rochelle works at the intersection of social psychology, creativity, and culture shift. Her whole thing is helping people stop shrinking and start leading. Pause. Can we just bow down to that? And she's built the programs, communities, and rooms to actually make that happen. Welcome, Rochelle.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
How are you today?
Good. It's a long day. We're closer to the weekend, so that works for me.
Crawling. We're crawling, girl. We're gonna
Yeah,
get
we're
through
gonna
it.
get there.
Well, let's start off with the name Alchemy for Change, because that name alone is like a heavy loader. So please share with us all about Alchemy for Change and how that started.
I don't really know how that started. One of my friends works for a paper here, and she is like into all the work that I do. You can kind of send her my brainstorming. My brain kind of never turns off. I'm one of those people who's like a serial entrepreneur. I have like a file cabinet of all the stuff that I want to do, but you can't do I mean, you can, but so
You'll
I
get
sent her
tired.
over, I know. I sent her over like a concept of what I wanted to do. And she was like, yeah, you should really get into consulting. I would love to hire you. I blah, blah, blah. And so initially it started as just culture shift consulting. And I was like, I feel like that's cute, but I want to do a little more. Like, I want to really alchemize things. And I was like, wait a minute, that's it, right? So that's kind of how the name came to be, how we got the alchemy, kind of, the fusion of things. And it's not magic, but it's like what comes about when you galvanize people and put people together kind of feels magical. And so we kind of created the name and then created the ecosystem around it, because she knew that me giving back to the community is like first and foremost in my mind, especially when it comes to Black, brown, and indigenous girls and women. So she kind of helped me streamline things, because again, I think really big, think back to that file cabinet, I think really big. She was like, take it and like focus it here. So that's how we kind of fine tune the precise consulting around the leadership piece. That is like my bread and butter. And then I was like, well, how are we going to give back to the community through this? How's that going to happen? So she was like, well, what if you did this? And I was like, well, that's cool, but what about a reinvestment model? We can put a certain percentage back into the community, through whatever means, whatever it looks like. So she really walked me through it. And it's weird. I'm going to need to call her after this, because she needs to be on the advisory council, but she's not. Like, she was very much a strategic, like, thought partner. And I'm like, how is your name not on this? So yeah, shout outs to her. And that's kind of, how Alchemy for Change came to be. And we focus on leadership development, conflict resolution, psychological safety, things like that for small to large organizations, people who need culture shift, things aren't quite right in their equity
Right.
and inclusion practices and their belonging practices. So that's where we come in, and they hire us and we do the things, and hopefully, they take the framework and they continue it, and they'll be better for it on the other side. Yeah.
I know so many organizations that can use your help, Rochelle.
Girl, I do too. I do too. Tell them to call me.
So you describe yourself as someone who builds a narrative universes. right? So I actually love how you pen that, and I just want to know how do you unpack it? What does that
Oh,
actually look like in practice?
chaos. It looks like chaos. Honestly, I tend to fail upwards, you
Mm,
know? I kind of throw things at the wall and see what sticks. I think the thing that I do that I don't know why a lot of people don't do it because it works. I go into the organizations, into the communities. I talk to people and say, "Okay, you work here. How's the culture? What do you need? Maybe as a woman of color in this organization, what do you feel is lacking? Do you feel like you belong? Do you feel like the practices are ethical? Do you feel included? I'll maybe if it's a school, I'm in Boston, we have a lot of healthcare and academic institutions here. Just go talk to people. What do you think you need? Tell me. And then I create from there. So I like to be informed by the people that I'm serving, by the organizations that I'm serving, by the employees that I'm serving, by the leadership teams, and then create from that knowledge. So I don't just create things and say, I think this is what people need. No, I know because I talked to them and they told me. And not just one person, not just two, a lot of people. And that's kind of how I create. And the kind of methodology of what the programs look like, throw it against the wall, see if it sticks. Not every method, not every framework is for everybody. And that's why we have a few. Some teams won't respond to some things and some teams will. So through talking to people in kind of that, let's get this proposal, on the table in that session where we're seeing if we're a good fit for each other, myself and the client. We go through and we ask a lot of clarifying questions, grounding questions to see which frameworks would be the best to then go in and deliver the service.
yeah, I love their strategy. It sounds like it's reverse engineering. Like you said, you're going to the root and working backwards. And I feel
Exactly.
like I can relate. I That's how I problem solve myself and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. So no engagement, like no service ever looks the same. Like the framework is just a starter, but everything is going to be different because nobody has the exact same issue.
Right.
So a lot of consultants, I feel like, just have this one box, or maybe even three boxes, and then they try to fit the clients into one of the boxes. We have the clients create the box, and then we create the things that go in the box.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think that is the smartest way to do it.
I
I
agree.
That's smart. That's why you're doing what you're doing,
That's
Rochelle.
what I'm doing. What I'm doing. I'm trying.
I also can relate heavy with, I'm the type of person that loves to try new things and I don't mind failing in public. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
don't mind falling on my face
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, we all start from somewhere. And I think that just the courage that we see from others doing the same thing helps in every sense of the way for yourself in those moments of hard times.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like, that will segue into like Black Girl Assembly, and that is what community is for.
Mhm.
So a lot of people are afraid to fail because they think that is where things stop. For me, failure is where you learn, and that's where it begins. But you kind of need community to hold you through that failure and say, oh, it's okay. Like, it's okay, sis. Like, you still got this one thing out of it. So use this one thing and just start again. So you only need to get it right one time.
I agree. Just giving that safe space.
Yeah.
So important. So, what did you learn early on about yourself that pointed you toward this kind of work?
Ooh, nobody's ever asked me that question. Okay, let me see. What did I learn about myself to point me into like leadership development? Can we cuss on here? Like, I don't know.
Yes, girl. This is a free
Okay.
judgment zone. Come as you
Yeah.
are.
I I was in a position and they hired somebody else underneath me. It was a white woman that they hired underneath me. And my coworker was also a white woman who was just like a peer, right? Like side by side. The white woman they hired underneath me did not have the same background. She didn't have the same degrees. She wasn't at that level, but somehow she was getting paid 20 grand more than me. And I was supposed to train her.
Make that make
Hmm.
sense.
make it make sense. So I was like, oh, y'all got me fucked up, right? All the way. Okay.
All the way.
So all the way. So I talked to my homegirl, my colleague who's also a white woman, and I told her what was going on, and she said, they got you fucked up. It's
Yeah,
like, yes, girl. Yes. So in drafting a letter, I guess I was too soft, and my coworker, she had been there longer, and she was like, "No, let me help you, you got to say it with your chest." And I was like, "Okay, respectfully, say it with your chest respectfully." Okay. So we sent the letter asking for a raise, a promotion, whatever, because this is not the things are not thinging, right? So the leadership staff, all white people, they got it and they said, "This is a very aggressive letter." I was like, "That's crazy because you're saying it's aggressive, but if a white person were to send the same thing, that's not what you would say. You would say it was assertive." So in that moment, I wanted to create kind of a space, a community, an ecosystem where people of color, specifically women, could learn to lead without being shrunk, right? We could learn to have a lot of strategy behind what we do. We could learn that a lot of times we lead from a place of trauma, right? So a lot of our leadership is actually steeped in trauma responses. And then to just basically not take any shit, know your value, know your worth. And then as far as the leadership team, like the people who quote unquote, I hate this phrasing, but the people who quote unquote have power over you. So they have power over if you're going to get that promotion, if you're going to get that raise, whatever's going to happen in your career, how to kind of manage up and again, turn whatever you're going through into strategy in order to get to where you want to be. So it's all strategy. It's all like based in knowledge. It's all using the tools that you need in order to get to where you want to go. Like, don't let the noise, don't let the patriarchy, don't let like the systemic racism, don't let it get to you. And then on the organizational side, I wanted to get organizations out of that process, like out of that systemic racism. I wanted to get them into a place where yeah, you have the diversity, quote unquote, because you have a sprinkle of person of color here, a sprinkle of person of color there, your token, whatever here. And you call it diversity, cool. So I'm not even going to focus on that. I'm going to focus on the equity, inclusion, and belonging piece because you have these sprinkles of people in there and you treat them terribly. So let's get to a point where you're doing things intentionally, right? What does that look like? What does building trust in that team looks like? What does dismantling a structure of trauma and pain and shrinking and racism, what does that look like? How can we better your organization? How can we better position you to be more equitable, to be more inclusive and the practices that looks like? So how can the leadership team model that so then it trickles down? So it all started with that one girl who was getting paid 20K more than me that I was going to have to, child, it was a whole thing.
So then what
It was
happened?
a
Now
whole
I'm
thing.
invested. What happened? You left?
No, I got promoted.
You got promoted? Yeah, I got.
I got promoted. Oh no, no, no. I argued them down. It was a battle. I got promoted and the woman under me actually ended up leaving. So
Wow. Wow. What is the typical kind of reaction when it comes to the corporate side?
people are aghast. Okay. They
Yeah.
clutch their pearls. They're like, no way. There's no way my employees think that. There's no way. Well, according to this anonymous survey that we have here, 73% of your employees actually feel this way. But girl, they are aghast. They are clutching their pearls. And I, at this point in my career, find it comical because you knew. You just didn't think they had the audacity to say anything. And that's the thing. So they knew, they always know. Of course, you know what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
is it hard for me to have those conversations? Not at this point, because the work that I'm doing is very important to me. It's, for the people. It's for the people who feel like they have no voice because they've shrunk themselves down so much that they don't feel like their voice matters or that they even have one. So, for me, having those conversations opens the door to say, no, your voice matters, your voice is powerful, and here's how to use it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
For the Alchemy for Change, the model in itself is a benefit corporation where your consulting revenue funds community program, right? So walk me through how you design that intentionally, because a lot of people talk about values aligned businesses and then they struggle to actually build the structure to back it up.
That's
So,
because, yeah, that's because values aligned and mission aligned are two different things. Your
really?
business is like the core values. I see it all the time is very different from the actual mission. So like I have a lot of culture commitments. So things I
Hmm.
commit to do for the community, things I commit to do for employees, and things I commit to do for clients. And we go from there. The most important thing for me overall, and it will be forever until I'm no longer here, is going to be my community. Black, brown, and indigenous communities. I don't really care about anything else. Y'all good, So when I'm thinking about that reinvestment model, it is very easy. It's almost it's almost like, the concept of stealing from the rich and giving to the poor, right? You have all of these big corporations, all of these big organizations, institutions, that need the work that we're doing, absolutely need it. They need to change the culture. They need to help retention. They need to provide a sense of belonging and inclusion. They need to develop more equitable practices for the sakes of people's mental health, at the very least.
Yeah.
So, you charge them their full fee. They can afford it. These are multi-million dollar institutions and organizations. So if I'm charging them, 10 grand for whatever it is, then there, of course, I can give 2 grand from that and put that back into the community. That to me is not a lot. So
And it goes a long way.
it does exactly. Because when you think of it, that is going back into scholarships or sliding scale fees, so people who can pay will. But the thing is for people who need that access, for people who are struggling, maybe they're like brand new entrepreneurs, but they still live on a project. Those are the people that I created that model for. So that, if I'm charging, for example, our Unshrink and Lead program for women, that's like $1,250. It's an 18-week program. It's like a mini MBA, right? Everybody can afford that. So being able to have that model to then, reinvest. So maybe somebody can afford $500. Okay, you give us that and we'll work out the rest, right? You can have a payment plan for that 500. Maybe you can only afford $20, but your application really spoke to us. So we really want you in the program. Okay, we have this fund to set aside. Yes, come in. There are certain commitments that we hold people accountable to, that we do give, financial assistance for our programs. Of course, we're going to hold you at a higher standard because we're spending our money on you, which means we really, really believe in you, right? So don't quit. But I feel like my purpose here on earth is to really give back to my community in whatever way that looks like and whatever way is needed. That's always going to be a core part of my work. Every single thing I do comes back to how can I help my community?
You mentioned the phrase, you use no corporate theater required, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to know, what does corporate theater actually look like?
Sure. Mhm.
And how would you recognize when you're in it?
Trying to put too much on your plate, right? Saying yes when you really mean no, you don't have any space, dressing up for stuff when you really don't have to. Like, sit down. Like, okay, Schoolhouse Rock. You remember this?
Yeah.
Like you don't have to, do the most, You need to feel comfortable in your skin, show up in your, who you are as you are. You don't have to code switch, you don't have to shrink, you don't have to perform because your work speaks for you. So you don't have to do the rest of it. Right. And I see a lot of people, they think, for example, Black women, we think we have to straighten our hair. We can't wear our braids. We can't do our weaves. We can't, we have to show up as this specific type of person to fit in this box. We have to code switch. That is just a performance and it's exhausting. Just that in itself is exhausting. Imagine doing that, like changing yourself, your appearance, how you show up, your vernacular, right? Talking about shows at lunchtime that you don't watch. Girl, you don't watch that show. You know what I'm saying? and just trying to be somebody that you're not in order to fit into a box that was never made for you to fit into to begin with. So that where I work, what I do, anybody who is going to work with me, intern with me, partner with me, we don't need all of that. Just show up how you are. You know, your work speaks for itself. Let that be that. Let the work be the work and let you show up authentically in the skin that you're in. You're fantastic. You're amazing. Chill out and let's
Yeah.
just work, you know? So yeah.
I remember there was a because I in my past I worked in corporate as well. And like I remember there was an era where there was a meme floating around and it was of an alien pulling off his mask, like how you feel when you get home, right? After your corporate gig or whatever.
Yeah,
It's just to the point of your job. If you just feel like you're always constantly wearing a costume and you can never just breathe and be you until you get home,
exactly.
until you take it all off. So I
That's the
feel that.
corporate theater. Yeah,
I
that's
hear that.
exactly it. That's exactly it. You put on your whole costume, you put on the mask, you put on the hair, then you have a script that you have to follow, that corporate script that's accepted. You have your cue, right? And then you wait for the day to action, 8:30. 8:30 is action, right? And you do the things and then cut. And then you can go home and you take everything. It's exhausting. It's
It's not
exhausting.
it always catches up, right? Like, if you're not in alignment of where you should be, it will like, you can probably hide it for a while, right? Maybe even years, but it does do a toll
It
on
takes
you.
a toll. Yeah. I wrote an article about that. Do not negotiate with misalignment. Yeah. So I wrote all about that. Yep. That's why
Yeah.
it needs to be on the institutional level, right?
Yeah.
So we want to be able to help these companies create a space that is inclusive, that is equitable, so that when people are operating off of that like trauma, oh my gosh, I need to find a job, I need to find it now, like they can walk into some place that's going to respect them as a human being and not just kind of like a robot and a means to get the work done, but realize this person is spending 40 hours a week here. It's a long time. You know, we need to treat them as human. We need to understand that they have life going on out of here.
Yeah.
We need to understand that they have families, that they have, you know, trauma, that they have, you know, love going on, that they have this, you know, that they have, you know, just human stuff. So trying to shift people into that, you know, humanity first piece, you would think that it would be easy, but it is not. People don't see humanity first for whatever reason. There's capitalism. We just
I just
don't see it.
blows my mind. Like, it blows I don't know. I don't know. It just that's why I have a love-hate with corporate. I
hmm I do love for people to kind of do their research on the place that they're about to work, you know, see what they're promising their employees, kind of see they put their money, like doing research to see what does that company, organization, whatever it is, who do they fund? Where does their money go? And that oftentimes can tell you a lot about the culture. So yeah. So it's very much you know, kind of attacking the problem from both sides on that individual side and the organizational side, and hopefully, you know, being able to find a good fit and meet in the middle. But it's hard work a lot of times. I'm exhausted, just emotionally exhausted from just dealing with stories, dealing with, you know, the peopling of it all and kind of holding space for people. It can be a lot. So I, I I get tired a lot. So I'll go on walks with my dog.
take those magnesium salt baths,
Girl,
friends.
yes, yes,
Take those
yes.
magnesium salt baths, because
Mhm.
you're probably getting a lot of energy of, like, "Help us, save us," type
Yeah,
of energy, you know?
100%. Yes, that's 100% what it is. And you know, you can't save everybody. And that's something like people who are doing kind of mission and social impact work, you know, you want to, but you can't save everybody and you have to be okay with that. You know, all of this is not your burden to bear. You cannot save everybody. So the faster you come to grips with that is the better off you'll be because you work yourself to the bone and things it comes from you, it flows from you. So you have to be okay first. Like what did they say? Put on your mask on the plane, put your mask on, help yourself before you help others. You have to make sure you do that too. So I also preach like self-care. I also preach like rest as resistance. You have to make sure that your individual self is okay in order to be of service to others. So that's also another piece of the puzzle.
Absolutely. I absolutely 100% agree. I know I just took a look at the time and I'm like, "Oh my god, we could keep on talking forever. So this is so much fun." But something I do wanted to ask you
Mhm.
before we go. Now, as a founder, CEO, facilitator, creative director, and that's just like in your daytime. I don't even know if you have anything else beyond personally. If you
I
got
do
like
like to podcast and I like to write. I do. So, yeah.
you clearly have a lot. You hold a lot. Where do you go to stop shrinking? So, like, what does that look like for you personally?
Well, I will say that these days I don't really have a problem with shrinking. I don't think I shrink anywhere in my life anymore, but there was a lot of work that went into that.
That's what I'm talking about. What did
Yeah.
that look?
What
What
did
did
that
that?
look like? Therapy, a lot of therapy, talking to my elders, talking to people who have, gone through the journey before me, whether successful or not. And what did that look like? What were the missteps? What were the wins? What were the fails? A lot of reading. So, a lot of bell hooks, a lot of, is it Mickey Kendall? Like I'm just rereading like Hood Feminism.
Ooh.
A lot of research, a lot of being in community. So being vulnerable with people so that they can help me on my journey. And that's the toughest part. You have to be vulnerable in order for people to be able to help you. If they don't know what's going on, it's impossible for them to help you.
Yeah.
So just being able to open up a lot. I have a lot of sisters. I have three sisters. So, talking to them and saying, yo, what am I doing wrong? Like, what's going on with me? Do y'all know what's going on with me? Like, what's happening here? So that, and then I like to have a board of directors for my life. I don't know if you've ever heard of this concept.
It's cute. I heard of that
Yeah.
before. Yeah.
Yeah. So having a person, a mentor, a sponsor, an ally for different pieces of your life and being able to go to them for different needs, for feedback and things like that. So having that set up and actually utilizing it, that has been a lot of help in getting me to where I am today. It's a lot of work. I mean, this didn't happen overnight. I mean, years. Like, I'm talking like a decade, of putting in work in order to be able to show up fully and unapologetically in my skin. And now I turn around and teach it to others because, the faster people can hop on this bus, the more powerful we'll be.
And we'll all get to eat and be happy
That's
and
right.
married.
That's right.
Yes,
Yep,
the way it
exactly.
should be.
Exactly.
The way it should
Mm-hmm.
be.
Mm-hmm.
So to close this out, Rochelle, if a woman is listening right now and she's doing work she deeply believes in, but is exhausted by it, by the systems, the weight of it, by doing it in a world that doesn't always make space for her, what do you want her to hear today?
You are more than capable. You are more than capable. And rest is a radical form of resistance. You are more than capable, and rest is a radical form of resistance. You don't have to do it all. You don't have to carry it all. You can put some down. You're not the only person doing this work. Somebody else is going to pick it up. Trust me. Trust me, they will. Put down what's not serving you and pick up something else. The fact that you're doing the work at all is already helping the community. You do not need to carry the burden by yourself. And you are not carrying the burden by yourself, even though it may feel like it and look like it. Find your people, find your community, find those who will allow you to rest, find those who will carry you when you can't walk anymore. Just find your tribe. You can rest. And even though you want to rest and maybe you want to take a 3-month rest, that is fine. But at the end of the day, after your rest, remember that you are more than capable.
I love that. I love that. Where can people find you, Rochelle?
They can find me on other places. Change.com. That's FOR, Alchemy 4, change.com, blackgirlassembly.org. And the same thing for all the socials.
What you
Yeah.
building with Alchemy for Change and Black Girl Assembly is the kind of work that changes the texture of people's lives. So I want you to have your flowers too. It's
Thank
not
you.
just is not just their careers. You're doing way more than just that. The actual quality of how they move through the world is being shifted and helped by you. And that is kudos to you. You
You.
deserve your
Thank
flowers.
you. Thank
For
you so much.
everyone listening, if you felt something during this conversation, go deeper, find Rochelle, find the community that she's built. You can learn more about her work. As she mentioned, alchemyforchange.com and blackgirlassembly.org. All of this info will be in the show notes. And you guys, I hope you enjoy this as much as I have. And that's a wrap on this episode of Hustle and Heart. If something from today's conversation stayed with you, share it. Send it to the woman in your life who's in the middle of building something and could use a reminder that she's not doing it alone. Subscribe to get notifications on new episodes. I'll see you then.